These days, it seems like we're all caught in a cycle of uncertainty. The future is so much less predictable than ever before, and it's having a detrimental impact on our mental health. The pandemic has sown so much fear and uncertainty among individuals about their jobs, about their families, about their money, about their health. A worldwide virus that we couldn't control has taken away much of what we could manage before. This feeling of uncertainty can lead to feelings of anxiety and depression. When we're constantly worried about the future, it's really hard to live in the present moment and enjoy our lives. We may start to withdraw from activities and people that we once enjoyed. But as the dust is beginning to settle, it's time. It's time to pick up the pieces and start rebuilding. Believe it or not, there is more hope in your life than you may think. Uncertainty is a reality, but it can become much bigger than it really is. So to keep uncertainty from being maximized or even minimized, we need to acknowledge it's valid so we can move forward with the other reality of the hope that exists in our lives. Hey, everybody. Whoever is here, let me see real quick. Sly, Mr. Camera Junkie. We got Lazuka is here too. And of course, my wife who loves it's always tea time with her. Always tea time. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here tonight. I was off last week, as some of you probably were. I mean, come on, it was Mother's Day. What are you going to do, right? I mean, come on, we got to honor the moms. We got to honor them. So last week was great. I hope you had a good one. Sly, I hope you were lifted up more than you usually are. We just need to acknowledge it's so unfair. I just have to say what moms have to go through. I mean, you got all of it. I don't even want to go through it all, but just from the beginning to the end, you guys have so much on your plate. And so it was really neat last week to see so many celebrating, momhood, and that was awesome. You saw that video that I just played. Well, that's really it, right? I mean, uncertainty has impacted so many of us. If you have any uncertainty in your life, this is going to be a really good video. I really hope you're going to like this. And I see everybody in here who knows who I am, but I guess I better just let everybody know. My name is Carlos Martinez. I am a professional clinician. I have a private practice in Pasadena, California. And I am doing PsychoEd Sundays. And today, PsychoEd Sunday is all about uncertainty. Oh, man. I don't know that anything has been more of an issue during the pandemic as uncertainty. When I say we, I'm talking about us who work in the field, working with people, who are struggling with anxiety, depression, addictions, couples who are struggling. And through the pandemic, this is what we've come to see. During the pandemic, we've seen uncertainty go through the roof. And believe it or not, there is a therapeutic system that's designed for uncertainty. And it's really based on cognitive behavioral therapy. But we've been using that like crazy throughout the pandemic. Believe it or not, when we first locked down, we all knew, those of us again who work in the field, we all knew that if this went on longer, if it went on longer than 90 days, meaning the lockdowns went on longer than 90 days, this is what we knew was going to happen. We were going to start seeing these kinds of things. We were going to start seeing anxiety. We were going to start seeing symptoms like OCD, depression, because that's the research shows if we stay in lockdown too long, our brains start going kind of batty, and that's what happened. And so, but I don't know if you've heard about this, but today we are living in a mental health crisis right now. because of all that happened during the pandemic. And one of the biggest things that was twisted and tweaked and stretched was uncertainty. And that's why I want to talk about this today. So we are going to do that. I want to just acknowledge some of the players. We've got some people here that are joining tonight. And I'm really excited because whenever I share this stuff, I work in the helper field. You know, those of us who work in the field, we do it because we just really love to help people, much like I would think other people, nurses, doctors, etc. They enjoy helping others, and that's what I do, and that's why I really do appreciate when anybody jumps on. But let me get a couple of people in here. Let me see who's here. Luis, like I said, Lazuka's here. You know, I think this is your first time, man, jumping onto my channel. So, hey, welcome. Vancouver, I got a buddy in Penticton, so I'm sure you know where that is. Mr. Camera Junkie, awesome last night. Big 41. I'm a little ahead of you, bro, but I mean, you're a little pretty, you know, a little more handsome than I am, a little prettier. So, you know, you got that on me. Sly's in here. You know, I got my nachos, the ready. Love that. The nachos, I'm telling you. By the way, I have a client who actually she's a vegetarian, and she made these nachos out of some kind of vegetable. And I kid you not, like I said, I would never, no way, I will never eat it, ever. And she said, no, you don't understand. I'm professional here. I know what I'm doing. And I don't know what she made it out of, but it wasn't cheese. I kid you not, it tasted like cheese. It was incredible. So every once in a while, I want to make sure she's aware of that. Peter Gregg is here. Man, this dude. I'm itching for a sugary dessert. I wonder if I can eat something like a coconut cluster and then spit it out before it's... Peter, it is. It's dangerous. Don't do it. Oh, man, you're such a crack up, man. I'm so glad you're here, though, Peter. You know, Friday night was super fun. That was enjoyable. Jim, Monday, looking forward to it. I'm glad, Jim. I think this is going to really speak to all of us. And then, you know, now I don't feel bad because I missed last week. That's right. That's right. Now you don't feel bad. I mean, you missed too, right? Because you were doing your thing. So look, I'm going to get into some of the rest of the comments in a minute, but I want to get rolling here because we got a lot to cover. You know, I speak a little fast. I'm probably going to do that again during this session because I want to get it all in, and you can always watch the replay if I'm going too fast. But really good stuff here that we're going to cover, and this is what we're going to start with, okay? So uncertainty. This is really interesting, but it was extremely different years ago, okay? It really was, and you probably already know that. Things have changed. I mean, it's unbelievable. Years ago, it was much more concrete, okay? Things were much more concrete. They were much more within our control. We had much fewer decisions that we had to make a long time ago. There have been some crazy studies, by the way, that have shown if the brain that we have today was, you know, put under, was analyzed 60 years ago, that we would have probably been institutionalized. Like the way the brain looks right now, if you put that under an MRI and you look at it as compared to it did years ago, it would look like we're mentally ill. It would look like there's something wrong. So you can see our brains have evolved. They've really changed a lot, you know. And the other thing is, if you look at today, where we're at today, we're making way more decisions today. And we need to make them all the time, by the way. All day long, we're making decisions that we didn't have to make before. And that has a lot to do with how connected we are. Technology really took us to another level. You know, you have a cell phone, you have your laptop, you have all these things, and you have to decide if you're going to take them with you when you go camping. You just don't go camping. Years ago, when you went camping, you didn't have any of these tools. So you didn't have to decide, well, should I put that down or should I do a little bit of work? You see what I'm saying? And I put this in here that equals more uncertainty, which equals anxiety, right? And That's why we're all, many of us are living under so much of this today, lots and lots of it. So you can kind of see a little bit how different things were. Um, there's, present. It's kind of interesting. Work's a little fuzzy today. It's not like it used to be. Now we're thinking about, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen. If I do this thing first, and I let go of that other thing, what's going to happen? Do you see what I mean? It's a lot more fuzzy than it used to be. I mean, think about the way it used to be. It was all task oriented many years ago. You would do something, it was complete. It was completed. Think about this. How many things do you leave incomplete by the time you go to bed? How many emails have you not responded to? How many tasks have you not responded to? It really is. We have so much during our day today that we're trying to get to. So we are living a lot with a lot of uncertainty today, more than ever. So I want to I want to take just a little dive into the brain just for a second. So if you look at the brain, I can't show it here, but in the top middle kind of area, there's something that we called the anterior cingulate cortex, and this is, basically very small little sliver of our brain, and what that part does is it's linked to decision making, right? It's always activated whenever we feel uncertain. That part of the brain is always activated. And again, like I said, before technology, we didn't need to make so many decisions all the time like we have to today. And our brain is really an overload. I mean, it's trying, what's really weird about it is we're only using a very tiny fraction of our brain, but we're not using the areas of the brain that we should be. We should be evolving in healthier ways. Instead, we're kind of evolving in ways that's creating a lot of anxiety. And our brain isn't happy. It's not really cool with what we're doing to it today. We didn't have so many choices every day before. Like I just mentioned, being on a camping trip. Do I or do I not bring some work with me? Well, you couldn't bring work with you before. You couldn't bring your cow with you to milk with you, when you went on a camping trip. I mean, that you just, there were things you couldn't do. That's an extreme example, but there are a lot of things you just couldn't take from home. And now you can work anywhere in the world. Airbnbs there's so much work going on in Airbnbs around the world. They're not vacations anymore. So there is, for instance, here's another thing. Do you ever get on Netflix? For me, it's Apple TV. When I get on Apple TV, I get a little frustrated scrolling through all the movies trying to find something to watch. There is something about having too many choices. That's one of the issues that we have today, is that we have too many choices. In fact, there's an example of there's a famous psychologist who pointed this out and drew this diagram for us. But basically, we have all these choices, and these choices are really awesome, and we love them. And but unfortunately, we hit this curve where we get too many choices, and then we start coming down. Then we start feeling bad. Isn't that wild? Too many choices aren't good. If you put, less choices are better, and they oftentimes, help us limit the uncertainty that we have when we have too many choices. So that anterior cingulate cortex, that what we call the ACC, that's the part of the brain that we really want to care for a lot more effectively. And we do that with a couple of these things I'm going to show you in a second, because there are ways that we can deal with uncertainty. We can't avoid it. I mean, there's tons of uncertainty around us, right? In your life, in my life, and personally. But also there's a whole bunch of uncertainty around us, isn't there? There's tons of uncertainty. So two important things, okay? One is to identify what is within our control. Sound familiar? I probably talked about this in one of my previous videos, but one of the best ways that we can deal with uncertainty is identifying what is within my control. Remember I talked about the negativity bias a while back. We don't do that. With negativity bias, we tend to focus on what? We tend to focus on the negative. Instead of, okay, let me think about what I can control. No, we tend to think, well, there's nothing I can do, and you feel out of control. But actually, we're not. We actually have a lot more things that we're in control of than we think. So identifying what I can control right now is really important for the next step, and that is game planning. I had a client years ago, many years ago, who said, every time I go back to my family and I see them during the holiday and I take the kids and everything, he said, I really struggle. I have a horrible time. Families are my family's really toxic, and I always end up leaving with a lot of resentment and frustration. And so I said, wow, sounds like you know exactly what's going to happen, and he thought that was kind of interesting. And I said, well, look, since you know what's going to happen, why don't you do something about it? Why don't we focus on what you can control when you go, and let go of that fear of what all the things that could go wrong, that will go wrong, blah, blah, blah. And so we spent a little while thinking about the things he could control. So one of the things he said was, well, I can't control what is most likely going to happen is my siblings or my mom or my dad, they're going to say something, this particular thing, and it's really going to anger me and frustrate me. It always does. Okay. What can you control? You can't control your family. He said, well, I guess I can control what I choose to share from the very beginning. Wow, that's interesting. So now you're thinking about some communication boundaries that you're going to have for the sake of your sanity, right? So he went in with a game plan. Okay, he went in with exactly this. He went in with a game plan by focusing on what he could control. And it took him a little while to figure out what he could control. He even said, if I get too frustrated, I could actually take a walk. Again, he couldn't control that. And so I told him to check in with me after. He went with his family. He went really because he wanted his parents to be with his kids, because he really values that. And when he came back, he checked in with me and he said, for the first time since I can remember, we left in a peaceful way. I actually felt really good about our connection. And I said, well, what was different? And he said, well, I focused on what I could control. I limited what I shared. I didn't go as deep. And here's the thing that was interesting about that, because he thought, well, aren't I being a fake or a phony if I don't share everything with them? And I said, well, how's that being fake? I mean, you're being honest, right, about whatever you're talking about. He said, yeah, well, see, you're not being fake. What you're doing is you're deciding to have a healthy boundary around your communication. And it sounded like it really worked for everybody, not just for you. It sounded like it helped everybody else too, which was really awesome. So game planning. Let me show you one other thing here. So get to my overhead so I can write this out for you. Let me get to a clean page. When you think of what I just said, focusing on the things we can control, maybe this picture might just help you a little bit, stick in your head. Okay, but think of it this way. Okay, so let's think of a bucket. All right, there's a bucket. That's a horrible bucket, but that's a bucket right there. And this bucket is uncertainty, okay? That's uncertainty. Now, it's full about here. And all of this in here is going to be uncertainty. This is all of it. Okay, I'm just going to say this is the bucket of... Man, my writing's bad. So that's uncertainty right there. All this stuff in here is uncertainty. This is what we can't control. So you think about it. What's all this stuff for you? All this stuff that you can control. It's in the bucket. There's a lot of stuff that we can't control. Obviously we can't control others. There's other things in there, lots of things that we can't control, that we try to control, but we can't. This right here, all this stuff right here, this is all what we can control. And this is what we need to focus on. And there's a lot that we can control, right? We can, like I was saying a minute ago, we can choose, how we communicate. We can choose a lot of things during our day. We have tons and tons of control over things that we're doing. And what I'm talking about here is not, control freak kind of stuff. Okay. I'm talking about, healthy control, things that we can accomplish, actions that we can take that make us feel good about ourselves, right? That's what I'm talking about here. So in the bucket of uncertainty, this is really important that we acknowledge and accept. This uncertainty, people tried to avoid it, right? You know what happens when we try to avoid this? What happens is we end up medicating with things. And we medicate with things like, like alcohol, like food, other things too. We can medicate with, entertainment. So there's a lot of things, bad things that come out of avoiding uncertainty because it's a reality. Uncertainty is a reality. We can't get away from it, right? And if we choose to live in denial with the uncertainty, we're going to end up, like I said, we're going to end up medicating in a lot of different ways. Control comes out. Unhealthy control comes out when we do that. So can we support each other in being honest about how we're feeling about the real uncertainty in our lives? And I want you to hear this. I want to make sure you hear this really well. That uncertainty, when somebody is sharing that with you, can we be safer people for them? Can we be a safer space for someone? When we hold a safe space for someone who shares how they're struggling with uncertainty, the last thing that they need is a whack on the head. And that is like, just suit up and show up, man, or, you just need to do it. Those are things that aren't going to help somebody in that moment. They're not going to motivate somebody. What really does motivate somebody is when they do feel heard and understood and accepted. Then they can receive a little bit more, of a throttle from you. I receive a throttling from my mentors because I trust them. I take their loving correction. I can take that because I trust them. They didn't start with, trying to shame me into doing things. They didn't shame me into trying to let go of uncertainty. Well, you just needed to let it go, Carlos. Yeah, but I'm still struggling with it. Well, you just need to let it go. Okay, but I'm still struggling with it, right? No, I needed them to allow me to process that, to get that out, to help make sense of it more, before I could actually start to do what I said a second ago. Look, they had to give me a safe space so I can identify what was within my control, so I can actually start to game plan, right? And by the way, if you hear a little of that weird sound with my mic, it's my AC. It's like 100 degrees here in Southern California today. It's insane. So I've got the AC blaring right now if you hear that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, everybody. Think of this. And I'm going to get to your comments in a sec. Let me just breeze through a couple of more of these. Here is somebody, Karl Niebuhr. This is a German guy years ago who wrote something. I mean, he was way before his time with this, okay? And he wrote something that some of you know as the Serenity Prayer. And this is what it says. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. Remember what I said right here? This is what I can't change. So he's saying, God, help me to accept this, that I can't change this stuff right here. Help me with that. And give me the courage to change the things I can. Does that make sense? Give me the strength, the wisdom to actually change the things that I can. Here are the things that I can change. So we need to identify these things. And wisdom to know the difference. And that's a really big part of the community. When you're checking in with somebody, remember I told you a while back, we need fact checkers in our life. We need others to help us fact check what's going on with us. If we're feeling something or thinking something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate, right? I feel alone. Well, that might not be accurate. The feelings and the thinking, they're happening. We can't invalidate that they're going on. But are you really alone? And when we process with somebody, we then begin to recognize, oh man, I'm not alone. People love me. There are people who love me, who care for me. But I feel and think I'm alone right now. And that's what I mean. We need others, and I love to call others fact checkers. They help me to check the facts versus my opinion. It's my opinion that I'm alone, but after I process with you, I begin to realize I'm not alone. I'm loved. I'm accepted. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I hope it is. This is an incredible, incredible prayer. And you probably hear this a lot from people who are in recovery. I think in the 12-step program, this is something that they pray all the time. And there's a lot more to this as well. But this is the part that you probably hear all the time. Grant me that serenity. So we're after serenity, right? Serenity is going to come when we acknowledge and accept the uncertainty. And serenity is going to come when we focus on what we can control. Courage, and it takes a lot of courage to do that, right? To focus on what we can't control. It's really easy to focus on what we can't, right? That's, again, the negativity bias is so powerful. It's so easy to focus on what I can't do today than what I can do. So take out your journal, make 2 columns, things I can't control today, things I can control today. That it would be a really powerful exercise. I'd love to hear you put some of that stuff in the comments at some point, or bring that into group. Share a little bit more about the things that came up for you that you didn't realize that you had more control over. That would be really powerful. So, okay, let me get to some of our comments, see what's happening in here. I'm so grateful for you guys. I really am. Let's see here. Since I am such a lone ranger here, I am, here we go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, it was Mr. Camera Junkie's birthday yesterday. So again, his big 41, Sly, connecting with Lazuka. And thanks, Peter. Yeah, man. Got to give a thumbs up. Thanks, man. Thumbs up is very appreciative. Yeah. Hey, dude, it's your first time. I love it. Like I said, I'm so glad you're here. I saw, you commented earlier today to ask me what time we were doing this. Sly, uncertainty can indeed be overwhelming if that's how someone chooses to look at it. But the other way to look at it can be thrilling, adventurous. Oh, come on. That is so awesome. That is so powerful because it's true. It can be thrilling. Uncertainty doesn't have to be overwhelming. Sly just nailed it. That is the other way that we can look at it. And so when I am even, if you think of uncertainty, it is kind of like on a, what do you want to call it? There's a scale basically, right? If you are on it's like a spectrum, and some of us are going to struggle with it to a lesser degree, and some are going to struggle with it, to a greater degree. Those who struggle with it at a lesser degree, and I'm going to put this up again, who struggle with it at a lesser degree are the ones that are looking at it like Sly just said. Okay, their perspective is a little different. They may not even have as much negativity bias that's working against them, and so they actually look at it as, this is kind of exciting. This is kind of thrilling. And they're not seeing it as a weight of devastation. They're not allowing things to come into their mind like catastrophic thinking, black and white thinking, right? Does that make sense? That kind of thinking is what feeds the negativity bias. So Sly, you just nailed it. That is so good. What is Peter saying? Talk about Ventress, Uncle G out on those ledges in your latest video. Well, I got to check that out. Okay. Yeah. Oh man. Now you got me wondering. I'm curious, so I gotta check that out. Sly, yes, and Peter. It's very true from a Christian perspective. God gave thousands of trees, food sources to eat from, but said no to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That tree introduced choices that creates strife. You know, there's it's kind of interesting when you think about how simple life was. I mean, if we lived back, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we wouldn't have seen life as simple. We probably wouldn't have said, wow, life is just so simple. No, because, that's all we knew. About 17 years ago, my first trip to China, I was walking down this little trail, and I saw this little lady. She looked like she was probably 100 years old, and she was sitting on the ground, and she was, putting kind of the corn in that little thing, and she was doing this, to get all the corn out of there, and I watched her do that, and I told my wife, I want to go talk to her. Can we just go talk to her and see what she's up to? And I just thought she just seemed fascinating to me. Like, here she is doing this this chore that I'm sure she's done for so many years, and I'd love to get her perspective on life. That's what I think. So we walked down, introduced myself, and we started talking with her as she was, taking care of the corn, and so I did. I asked her that. I said, what do you think about things today? And of course she's not plugged in, especially 17, 18 years ago. Even then, rural China was very, very different. There were still carts being pulled on donkeys and things like that. But she said, life is just so complicated. I just thought, oh man, you think life is complicated? We must be going nuts if you think this is complicated, right? But that's all she knew. That's all she knew. But what's interesting is, like I said earlier, we have gone from 80 miles an hour to 300 miles an hour in a short period of time. Our brains have gone through this radical adjustment phase for just this small period on our timeline. Our brains have had to are hardwiring itself differently, especially with the advent of technology. So everything changed. And right now we're seeing tons and tons of weird stuff going on in our brains, especially in the millennial brain. We're seeing some really strange things happening that aren't normal, for a brain to be able to respond this way in the way they are doing with millennials. And that's because they're constantly on. They're on all the time. And so what happens when your sleep is aggravated over a period of time? What happens if, you may look good on the outside, but on the inside, things aren't going very well. The brain is being overwhelmed slowly. You're seeing a lot of young people today having panic attacks. That never happened before. They're having anxiety attacks. That never happened before. You talk to kids in high school today, and they talk about depression like, I don't know how to compare it, but they talk about it all the time. So there's a lot of amazing, crazy things that are happening today because we're pushing the brain in the way that we are. Lazuka, I'm still here, just lurking in the background. I'm glad you're here, man. You got the Zoom class. I think you are practicing, so that's cool. The Serenity Prayer has been a daily strength, my daily strength since I was a child. That's so cool. You'd be amazed how well it works for It does, right? Absolutely. I mean, that's a theologian who wrote that. And today, I think, modern day, clinical research is just, in some ways, it's just gotten too complicated. Where this theologian years ago wrote this powerful and profound, really, it's a clinical model, is what it is, and yet it was written so long ago. Things were just so, much more simple before. um, and Peter, pay attention to your class. No talking. No talking. Your teacher's going to get mad at you. That's right. That's right. Couple others here, and then I've got something special for you that I'm going to play out today. Recovery. Jim, in recovery or not, we could all benefit from working the steps. Oh, man. You guys are all just nailing it tonight. Jim, I don't think I said that, so you said it, and I'm just 100% agreeing with you. Everyone, no matter what, no matter you're struggling with addiction, depression, you're in recovery, it doesn't matter. Those principles are unbelievable. Those principles work with every situation that you're in. I mean, accepting where you're at right now, that's one of the steps. Accepting that you're powerless over the things you can't control, that's one of the steps. There's just, those steps are extremely powerful principles, and I agree, Jim. I really do. I think, if we practice them, we will be better for them. My wife, yes, life is complicated. I remember that, and you're right. My wife always says it's all about perspective. It is. And it's perspective, but we have to be intentional about caring for that accurate perspective, right? We can't just go based on feelings and thoughts. Even though feelings and thoughts are important, oftentimes they lead us down the wrong road, the wrong path. They can even lead us into a rabbit hole, right, if we're not careful, because they're so powerful. And so many of our thoughts and feelings are sometimes they're based on false narratives and things like that in our minds. They're not always based on facts. And that's part of, the cognitive behavioral work that a lot of us have to do. What do I have to do right now? I don't feel like I want to, but do I need to? Is this going to be better for me? Am I going to feel better after? Yes. Well, then I guess I better do it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Just go ahead and do it. I mean, that's simplifying it, but that's really how it is, right? I have to test my thoughts. And by the way, Peter, you said it. I'm going to bounce off this just a little bit, but there is an important person that we read about in the Bible, and his name is Peter. He was one of the Paul. He was one of the apostles. Something that he has, his journey, and by the way, there's another person called St. Augustine who really had much of the same journey. And the journey was the battle in the mind. They both talked a lot about the battle in the mind, and they both went through a lot. No wonder they went through a battle in their mind, because there was a lot of stuff that was out of their control. And so they were left to this. And it was really amazing to see, when you read about how they handled the battle in their mind, it's really encouraging and inspiring that we have more control over this, than we think. We have more control over the negative thoughts, the automatic fearful thoughts and insecure thoughts. We have more control over that. What was very clear, and what modern day research shows, though, is that we really do need those fact checkers to live a more optimized life. See, my understanding is very limited on my own. Do you understand that? Like, my understanding only goes so far on my own in isolation, okay? But you put me around some other people who care for me, right? Other people who love me. And as I process with them, now my understanding is expanding. My understanding is getting bigger. That territory of understanding is expanding. And that's because I'm doing life with others. This is modern day research that shows that our brain operates more effectively and is more optimized when we're in healthy fellowship, community, friends, family, people that love us. It's better. We work better that way. So there is something I'm going to leave you with in just a minute here that I think is going to be, I hope it's going to be kind of cool. A little motivating way out for us tonight. Peter, okay, back to the topics. There are differences between uncertainty and undecisiveness. Which one throws you into anxiety? They both can. But the uncertainty, kind of going back to what Sly was saying earlier, Peter, uncertainty isn't necessarily a negative. Indecisiveness can, play a little bit more into our identity. I don't know. I know. Let's just take an extreme example of indecisiveness. The extreme would be somebody who they can't purchase a car without speaking to many, 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 many people. In fact, they may never even get to buying the car because they're so indecisive between having this. They have all those options. Indecisiveness is a little bit different. Uncertainty is something you have every day, right? Every day we are uncertain about so many things that we weren't uncertain about before. Indecisiveness is definitely more about, says more about probably a little bit more about how securely attached I am. Okay, the more secure I am within myself, the less fear or anxiety I'm going to have around making this decision. Okay. In fact, Peter, I think you probably know where this is, even again, talking about it being in Scripture, but about, we are kind of, and this works better for the human brain. When we have to make a decision, we are best to make that decision with counsel, and with counsel, prayer, and then do it. So when you see people, let's say in recovery, who've made horrible decisions most of their life, horrible, destructive kind of decisions that have, created tons of problems in their life, they're really fearful about making decisions. They're very indecisive in the beginning because they don't trust themselves. That's the reason why they went to addiction in the first place. And as they begin to heal, they begin to create a track record, and they begin to start trusting themselves because they start to make healthy decisions. They go from indecisiveness to decisiveness, but the way they get there is that they bounce this off others to help them make that decision. They're not making the decision for them, right? They're making the decision, but they have to build that identity. They have to begin to feel more secure in who they are so they can trust in the decision that they're going to make. And here is an interesting one that I will point out, Peter. Years ago, I was with somebody, we were having breakfast, and after we left, there's a homeless person who came up to us and asked for some money, and he gave him some money. And as we were walking to our car, I said, his name was Mike, I said, Mike, how did you do that? What was going on in your mind when you decided to give that person that money? I was just curious. He said, Carlos, I just made the decision. I said, but how? I mean, I chose, I didn't have anything on me, but I think even if I had some money on me, I said, I think I would have really had a hard time deciding what to do. I would have been indecisive. And he said, well, Carlos, if you think that I'm perfectly comfortable knowing that I did the right thing, that's not the case. He said this, at the end of my life, I want to know that if I did error in making any decision, that I erred on the side of grace and mercy, that I erred on that side. And so that got me thinking, wow, there's a lot of decisions that I make, and I can connect with others, I can get wise counsel, I can do those things, and those things give me the best chance at making that good decision, okay, that fruitful decision. But there's no guarantee. I could be erring, but I'm going to err on that side of wisdom. I'm going to err on that side because I'm connecting with others. I'm not lying to myself. I'm not making a decision based on my own limited understanding. I'm reaching out and connecting to others to help me make the best decision that I can make. And then I make it. Some of us get really stuck, though, in that decision-making process, and it's tough. I think in those cases, sometimes it's best to write out those columns again, and process with others again what the possible consequences are of both of those things. I hope that helps a little bit, Peter. But I mean, you make a good point there. Yes, there's a difference though between those. Usually, indecisiveness can not only create anxiety, it can create a lot of shame. Okay, it can make somebody feel helpless and hopeless and useless. It can create huge issues into your life. In fact, a lot of that indecisiveness can be really anchored in low self-worth and shame. And Peter, as you mentioned, I just want to let you know that was part of my story, was being very indecisive. That's why I also know where at least mine was rooted in. It wasn't helping me. I didn't just go to one person or two person. I had to be validated, and then I had to go to someone else and someone else and someone else, and I just couldn't make up my mind about certain things. And I know that, thank God, that there's been a lot of healing, and I've been able to make those decisions. So, there's a lot of things I know that we can do. It's just, I don't know, for instance, just for today, if you think about it, I don't know. I have a good idea the way some things may go today. I really do. I have a good feel for how things are going to go today. But think of all the things that you do that literally you're not we can't tell what's going to happen in our future today. There are a lot of things that are going to happen that, again, are that are out of our control. If that's what we're trying to focus on, controlling every single step of our day, we're going to start feeling a lot of anxiety. Okay, for sure. We're going to start feeling a lot of that. My wife is saying something here. Let me get her in. What are you saying, Meg? Human default condition. I keep doing things I don't want and yet doing. Yeah, that's right. That is, the default condition, otherwise known as insanity. Right? Definitely insanity. Yeah, Jim, error on the side of grace and mercy. I'm glad you can take that away. I'm glad you're taking that away from tonight, because that hit me hard. When Mike told me that, I just thought, wow, that really spoke really deep. And it helped me realize, you know what, I can't be certain with every decision I make today. Especially the tough ones, especially the hard ones, especially the relational ones, you guys. Think about that. Those decisions I make when I connect with people or talk with people, friends, whatever. I had this meeting this weekend, and I decided to say some things and share some things that I don't know if it was the best thing to do. I did have a partner that I processed that with, but I don't know. I wish I can please everybody. Don't you? It's not possible. It just really isn't possible. But yeah, that is really, it is very powerful, grace and mercy, right? And Kelly's here. I know he had a busy weekend. Do we, to a degree, don't we live in uncertainty? Yes, yeah, totally. It's part of life. That's right, Kelly. It totally is. It, like I said, how we can do that. Here's one thing we can plan on for tomorrow. We can plan to have some uncertainty tomorrow, right? If we know that there's going to be some uncertainty tomorrow, then let's game plan for it, right? Let's game plan. How can we do that? And I'm going to talk about that in my next video, like a little bit more of a deeper dive into the game planning. But I gave you a little taste of that today, and I hope that's helpful, okay? You guys, I am so pumped that you showed up tonight to hear a little bit about this. I hope there's a little bit of a takeaway that you are able to leave with today. It's just, this is a tough one. If we are struggling, if we're feeling fear and anxiety, especially anxiety over the uncertainty in our life right now, what we can begin to do, again, is focus on what you can control. Just go right back to that. Okay, there's so much out of my control, but what can I control? Focus in more on that. And then from there, we can start to game plan what we can do next, okay? So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for showing up tonight. This was so cool to have all of you in. I love having you guys in. You're a huge support in making me want to continue to do this every Sunday evening. And yeah, Mr. Camera Junkie, change is the only constant. That's right. So why don't we game plan better for it? Right? We can game plan better since we know change is always going to happen. It's constant. So let's keep at it. All right, everybody, let's stay connected. I want to remind you of something. Every week, I share with you, here's what I encourage you to do this week: to reach out to others for the benefit of fact-checking. Practice slowing down and giving your body and mind a time of rest so that they can be more optimized. Be more willing to do things differently than you've done before. Accept the reality of right now and allow yourself to experience discomfort. Allow yourself to do that and move through it. I promise you the dust is going to settle. And live in radical acceptance of your real self today. Stop judging yourself with expectations of living in your ideal self all the time. It'll take care of itself. We're growing into our ideal self, but we're not going to grow in that ideal self if we're judging ourselves. We can't be 100 all the time. All right, everybody. Here's a little something I want to leave you with. It's a little piece of motivational it's a little motivational video that I put together that was really inspiring to me. We will see everyone next week.
Never up, never down, never. Like a theme in a song, clever. Feeling high, feeling low at the same time. Feels so right, then I'm wrong, hoping I'll be fine. But I get up, I always do.